We were reading poetry by a Korean young college student in Imperial Japan in the 1920s. His name is Yoon Dong-ju, and it's actually been published in English translation and also in Japanese, several versions of it. He continued to write his poetry in Korean language, which was prohibited during colonial rule over Korea, and so he got caught by the Japanese kempe, police, imperial thought police, like the Gestapo, basically, in Kyoto, because he was studying at Doshisha University. This is like 1920s. So the Gestapo took him and his cousin, put them both in prison in Fukuoka, and they became skin and bone and died in Japan's custody. The reason that Yoon Dong-ju, the poet, was taken in the first place is that A, he was writing in Korean language and it was prohibited, but basically that kind of shows defiant spirit. He's from like a northern part of northern Korea, which is technically now China, in the self-governing region of ethnic Koreans. After Japan annexed Korea, a bunch of educated elites in Korea just picked up and organized a whole new settlement community further away from the reach of the Japanese colonizers to continue to educate their children in Korean to prevent the cultural genocide of the Korean people and culture, language, everything, but also to inculcate in them the spirit of resistance. Myeongdong School is very famous for that, and this started in the 1910s. Anyway, Yoon Dong-ju and his cousin were both children of people that were really key figures and educators, and comes from a line of Confucian and Chinese philosophy masters and things like that. So he studied in Doshisha University because, there's no university in Korea. To get educated, you had to come to the colonial metropole because Korea as a nation ceased to exist, right? Anyway, the book club, I was hosting it, and it's 4 or 5 people. But the person that was a professor and scholar of poetry and also his poetry, and she's a Japanese scholar, and she was the one that nominated that book. It was kind of like a college seminar, but she's picking out poems and she's commenting. She's oh, and this one is just so cute and funny, and I was kind of surprised to realize that I was being really graded by them. I was on the verge of tears reading some of the poems because there's one, he talks about this young man he sees when he looks down into the well. It's obviously his reflection in the water. He's oh, hello, and then he walks away and he starts to feel so much disdain and hatred and disgust for this young person, but then he starts to feel sorry for him, so he walks back to check up on him, and he's still there, and now he's oh, actually, I'm starting to adore you, and then walks away, and then this disgust wells up in him again, and he walks back to the well, and it's this whole dialogue with himself as a reflection in the water. I literally felt like I was reading about my dad, because that's exactly the walk that he does between himself and the reflection of himself in the well hundreds of times a day. He's second generation Korean. He picked up even when he was pre-verbal or something like that, I'm sure, because the Japanese were all around us, constantly treating us like germs and dirt. If they came physically assaulting us, there was nothing we could do except to try to appease them, so that they would voluntarily walk away and not cause any more ruckus or escalate the issue. If police or third parties intervened, it was always our fault. And so that's what it means, right? Is to not have rights is to live like a beggar. And so we were literally living like that. My dad's living like that, and he learns to, Yoon Dong-ju in his poem, I truly believe in my heart of hearts, is talking about one moment in the entire long, slow, decaying process of cultural dignity of a human being. It was so painful because it was a reminder of what my dad still lives, and that's what he does. And he's kind of quiet one moment, and then he just blows his top out, out of the blue, and he just he becomes this wild beast, bull in a china shop, but super rageful. And then he's gone because he's just filled up in self-hatred, and then comes back out and he drinks, and then he gets a little happy, and it's just a whole cycle. And it's not just my dad, but you grow up in the condition that he and second generation Zainichi Koreans did in the Korean ghettos. What the fuck else do you expect? But I realized reading that poem, I was like, this is exactly how it's like to experience cultural genocide. That's what I've been witnessing in my dad all my life. I kind of saw it projected to me in this poem, and it was not something that I could talk about without getting emotional. She's Japanese, doesn't have the perspective that I do. There's no way that anybody in the book club could connect any of his poems to cultural genocide, forced assimilation. We, humanity in the States, have to prevent forced assimilation of a whole peoples, but never did I come across anything that actually broke it down and told it from a perspective of the person subject to that process. And this poem is it. But also her commentary about, why his poetry was so powerful. It wasn't really for the same reasons that I felt they were, but she was like lecturing to us, and I got so triggered. I didn't get really emotional or upset, but after everybody left, and then I just lay in bed, and my brain was like processing this whole scene of what I just experienced over and over and over and over, like a hamster on a wheel. Literally, it was like 5 a.m. and I was like, oh my God, I've been trying to sleep for the last 7 hours, and I just couldn't. The last time that I experienced this is also when I was preparing to present in front of a bunch of Japanese people, and I realized that when Japanese people approach me with authority about things that come from my own experience, I feel this mortal fear. I'm not like shivering and going, oh, I'm scared. It's all inside. That time, I couldn't sleep for 3 nights straight. 3 fucking nights straight. And it was like, I took like a whole fucking vial of Adderall. That shit keeps you up at night for weeks. Anyway, I was so dysregulated in this very quiet, serene way. My dad, this is what he lives, and it's not just my dad. Every Zainichi second generation you meet, you'll never know on the surface, or even if you think you know them well. They close the door of their room and then they sit alone. Then it starts all over again. They walk to the well, and they have so much disgust for themselves. Walk away, and then feel sorry for this person. Walk back, all over again. It was so violent. What is made visible and what is not, what can be named and what will not be, and if it's named, what is accepted and validated in the moment and not. These little tiny micro negotiations on an interpersonal level about you and aspects of your experience, your feelings, your past, that are so tiny, broken down into a million pieces, but they accumulate, constitute an aspect of ethnic cleansing, cultural genocide, and ultimate erasure.